Joining us now is John Hinderaker. Thanks so much. Thank you for taking time this Thanksgiving weekend to have a chat here. Want to have a chat, though, about the process of getting these cabinet nominees confirmed. Who do you think, I've been talking about this with a few people tonight, who do you think the Democrats are going to try and block in this cabinet? Everybody, or are they going to pick one or two sacrificial targets?
Well, they don't have the votes, James. There are 53 Republicans in the Senate, and the Democrats are not going to try to block a lot of nominees. If you go back to 2020, every single Democrat in the U.S. Senate voted for every single person that Joe Biden appointed, okay, 100%. And Republicans they're not going to break ranks on a bunch of these nominees. And so the Democrats are going to pick their spots. They got Matt Gaetz out of there. That nomination was always kind of a mystery. If you want my guess, James, I'll guess that they're not going to get any more nominees defeated. But I think the one that they are going to go after the hardest is probably Pete Hegseth, who's been nominated as the Secretary of Defense.
Well, now tell me about Pete Hegseth, because I think you know Pete Hegseth yourself personally. He seems like a really impressive character to me. Some of the stuff that he has said, about the way defense procures munitions for war, the way that we are in the position of always fighting the last war, seems very important right now, given the situation we are globally, yet there is this smear campaign against him. Tell us a bit about Pete Hegseth, the man, and how you think he's going to get through this situation.
Well, Pete, first of all, is a friend of mine. He's from my home state of Minnesota. He's a young guy. He's a very charismatic guy. He is a 20-year military veteran and a genuine war hero with 2 Bronze Stars. He's an unorthodox pick for Secretary of Defense, because usually you think of the Secretary of Defense as the guy who's got to run one of the biggest bureaucracies in the world, $842 billion a year. And Pete doesn't have that kind of management experience running that kind of a bureaucracy. So when he was first nominated, I was kind of taken aback. But then I thought about it and I realized, James, no one has that kind of experience, right? No one is, in a sense, qualified to run that vast bureaucracy. I think Pete Hegseth's mission is going to be quite different from that. And I think that is why he scares the Democrats. Number one, Pete is a very strong opponent of wokeness. In fact, he wrote a book about how wokeness, DEI, and so on were really damaging the United States military. And so a big part of his mission is going to be to root wokeness out of our armed forces. But I think the second thing that's maybe even more important, James, is that we've been seeing a real decline in recruitment into our armed forces. Recruitment right now is at an unsustainable level. And the reason for that is because the kinds of young men and women who would sign up for the Army and the Navy and the Marines are not interested in joining a woke organization, a left-wing organization such as the one that was being run by the Biden administration. And so I think a big part of Pete Hegseth's mission is to be out there as the recruiter in chief, conveying to young people, and he's a young man himself, that things have changed, that the armed forces are back to being a war-fighting machine, and it is now time to enlist.
And John, with some of these cabinet picks too, you say that they're going to get to the Senate, and that's fine, but it does seem like there's other people who are not accepting the democracy, as they say here, because we've also heard word that at least 9 of Trump's cabinet picks have been targeted with death threats and swatting attempts. That's where they call the cops and say, oh, there's something going on at your house, and then the SWAT team arrives. It's a very dangerous, scary situation for people. Pete Hegseth was one of them, apparently. Tell us a bit about this. He says that he received, the cops said they had received a credible pipe bomb threat targeting him and his family. The path has been cleared, but he will not be intimidated. These seem like very low-down, dirty tactics by the left here, John.
James, it's absolutely terrible. We've seen assassination attempts. We don't know yet what's going on here, but it's obviously a coordinated effort. The FBI says that close to a dozen incoming Trump administration officials, including a number of cabinet appointees, were targeted with these bomb threats, death threats, swatting attempts. So obviously this is some kind of a coordinated effort, and I hope that the FBI will be able to get to the bottom of it and find out who's doing it. But it's a sign of the times, James. It's a sign of the times. We've had serious assassination attempts against, two of them now against Donald Trump. We had the assassination attempt against the Congressional Republican baseball team, in which several congressmen, including Steve Scalise, who was almost mortally wounded. We have the guy that tried to assassinate Justice Brett Kavanaugh of the Supreme Court. You know, these assassination attempts are starting to add up. And so we've got to take these threats seriously.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It is shocking the stuff we've seen there, but we've also seen the lawfare against Donald Trump as a candidate and as a former president. But he has had a bit of a win here. The judge in the 2020 election interference trial, where he was also accused of mishandling classified documents, has apparently agreed to drop federal charges. But I understand that some of the charges that are out there, they could be resurrected down the road. How much is there a sort of Damocles hanging over Trump legally now?
I don't think much, James. I mean, by the time he leaves office in 4 years, he'll be 82 years old. I think if the Democrats tried to revive some of these absurd prosecutions, the public would just rebel. I don't think there's any serious danger of that. The whole purpose of these persecutions, and as a 41-year lawyer, I can tell you these were ridiculous cases that the Democrats brought. The sole purpose was to try to prevent Donald Trump from being elected president. That purpose has failed. Those cases are going to quietly go away.
Good news. That's good news to hear this Thanksgiving weekend. John Hinderaker, thank you so much for your time. As always, great to have you here on the U.S. Report.